It's a painting dripping in blood, fit for a Shakespearean tragedy, or perhaps a Hollywood blockbuster, like Gladiator, which does mirror in part an element of the story. So, join me now as we look back in time to the dark side of Rome, a time long before Shakespeare, before Maximus, Commodus, and Marcus Aurelius, and let's light the fires of discontent to the tragedy that is the story of Virginia. Ancient Rome, 450 BC-ish. So here it is, the story of Virginia. On first appearance, it's a busy scene, nothing like the calm serenity of Botticelli's great painting, The Birth of Venus, and it's difficult to make sense of what's going on. People riding horses inside a building, and there's lots of commotion on either side of what at first glance appears to be a day spa for the wealthy. So let's try to make sense of this. Obviously, the one that we're looking for here is Virginia. According to the writer Livy, she was a great beauty, in the bloom of her youth, and she catches the eye of every man she passes. Just 15 years old, by our standards young, but to a man of that time, ripe for the picking and old enough to be married. And as is the custom, her father, Lucius Virginius, a respected centurion, has already betrothed her to a man, in this case, Lucius Acilius, a former tribune. That's Virginia down on the bottom left, attempting to flee the scene. The man next to her is Lucius, to whom she's promised, and to the right of him is a man called Marcus. Now Marcus has been given a task by a man called Appius, that being to seize Virginia. The reason for this? Lust, pure and simple, as Appius has developed a passion for the girl and Virginia has rejected his advances. So we see Virginia shocked by the rapidly unfolding events. Marcus cornering the poor girl as he calls out to all those who now look upon him that she is the daughter of a slave of his and a slave herself. But the crowd, they believe differently. They force him to take the case before the Decemvirs. But without realizing it, they've actually played into the hands of Appius, because Appius is not only the counsel to Rome, but he is also the head of the Decemvirs. Once the Decemvirs are convened, Marcus recites his crafted script, and Appius, pretending to be hearing this for the first time, says that the girl must be taken into custody while her fate is decided. But Lucius sees through his deceit, calling out this act by Appius as nothing more than a thinly veiled trick to get her alone and to have his wicked way with her. Appius feigns shock at the accusations, but senses the mood of the crowd, and not wanting to show his true intent, agrees that Virginia can go to her home and wait until her father is able to return to Rome and counter the charges. And so a messenger is dispatched to fetch Virginia's father, and Appius, in an effort to thwart any effort to defend Virginia, sends men in pursuit to intercept the messenger. They are, however, too late. Virginia's father receives the news of his daughter's predicament, and to Rome he races, to face Marcus before the Decemvirs. The next day, Virginia's father returns to Rome, and though exhausted from his ride, at dawn he makes his way to the Forum, along with many other citizens of Rome, supporters who believe that an injustice is being perpetrated on an honorable family. Virginia stands nervously by her father's side and next to her betrothed Lucius. Virginia's father speaks to the people and one by one takes them in hand and appeals to them to help him. He tells them that while on the front line he has fought for their freedom and in defense of them. But what good was that if while the city was safe, their children were exposed to being stolen from them? Appius then arrives and takes his place with the other Decemvirs. And before Virginia's father is given the opportunity to respond to the allegations, Appius makes judgment, deciding that Virginia was indeed the daughter of a slave and a slave herself. Then, as Marcus approached the matron standing around the girl, to seize her amidst their outcries and tears, Virginia's father, pointing with outstretched arm to Appius, cried out, "It is to Lucius and not to you, Appius, that I have betrothed my daughter. I have brought her up for wedlock, not for outrage. Are you determined to satisfy your brutal lusts like cattle and wild beasts? Whether these people will put up with this I know not, but I hope that those who possess arms will refuse to do so." Appius then addressed the crowd, talking of the violent behavior of Virginia's father, and suggesting that through the night meetings had been held in order to start a seditious movement against him. Forewarned, he had come to the Forum with an armed escort, not to injure peaceable citizens, but to uphold the authority of the government, and then he ordered the crowd to disperse. An ending fit for Shakespeare. Virginia's father, seeing that his supporters have now fallen back, speaks to the Decemvirs. He asks that he be permitted to question his daughter, to which they agree, and as he approaches her, he takes a butcher's knife from a nearby market stall and plunges the blade deep into his daughter's breast. Covered in the blood of his own daughter, in a scene later borrowed by Shakespeare for his play Titus Andronicus, and reminiscent of the finale to Gladiator, he then calls out to the Decemvirs, "In this the only way in which I vindicate my child thy freedom." The Decemvirs order Virginia's father to be arrested, but wielding the knife, he clears a path for himself and the now lifeless body of his daughter. He carries her to the city gate. Lucius then helps him to raise up the body of his daughter for all to see. They deplore the villainy of Appius and the terrible decision that her father has had to make. Appius then appears before the crowd and orders both Lucius and Virginia's father arrested. Guards move into the crowd, but are forced back and a furious scuffle begins. Appius attempts to address the mob, but is shouted down, and cowering from the noise, he hides his face in his toga and retreats from the scene. Virginia's father then returns to his camp and begs his fellow soldiers to help him seek justice. The soldiers rally to his aid, and along with a throng of citizens, they become a force to be reckoned with. Rome's senators now intervene, and sensing that the situation will only worsen, they agree that the Decemvirs must stand down from their posts. Appius and Claudius are arrested, the latter having his property confiscated, and he is sent into exile. Meanwhile, Appius chooses to commit suicide rather than face the courts. Peace in Rome has now been restored, but at what price? An innocent girl lay dead, and a painting echoes this scene in time, reminding those who look upon it of the evils that men do, and to warn others, well, to keep it in their pants. Now I'll bet you'll never look at this painting the same way again.